Summon Dragons 2 has rolled out a lot of new changes since I first started. First of all, you may notice something missing on my home screen. Well, if you said my first top-up badge is gone, you would be right. But how could I tarnish the sanctity of free-to-play? Well, actually, I kinda still am free-to-play. Because if by free-to-play you mean not spend any money, I haven't actually done that. Well, it turns out you could win these Divine Dragon tokens from social media events, and I did happen to win a little bit of them. Unfortunately, using the currency to buy a pack does take away your first top-up badge, but I think it was worth it. I went ahead and got the hatching pass, because these little dragons do end up getting you a lot of SSS shards. And with how many dragon eggs I was stocking up, it was getting to the point where I could never hatch them all. I think what's really important is a gallery update. This account is actually shaping up to be pretty nice. If we're talking about S ranks, I pretty much got them all unlocked. Now we're at the point where we're farming SSSs. And the SP might potentially be in the cards because it turns out there is a way to farm his shards now. Wormrealm Clash, Ancient Crusade, and Nightfall Forest are all their own events, but they cycle round and round. You can't expect them all to be up at the same time because you would just get way too many rewards. And SSS shards are everywhere. I even got enough shards for a couple SSSs coming up. There are, however, a few places I seem to have messed up. You see, this whole time, this video wasn't actually a how-to guide, it's a how-not-to guide. So while the SSSs aren't that hard to get a hold of, and it really doesn't take that many copies to get them up to Immortal, after that point, they do follow suit of the other dragons, requiring 2 copies for each star. So you might be thinking, that's the most absurd thing I've ever heard. How on earth are you supposed to max a SSS free-to-play? But what if I told you these spirit orbs are farmable, and once you do get one either through fusing the shards or from an event, it will count for a SSS slot. Which leads me to mistake number 1. Do not use those orbs for anything less than a SSS. Between Achilles and Aranus, I've used about 4 of them, and we all see where my Horus could be if I used them on him. The next big thing might depend on your guild, because if your guild isn't at least pushing level 5, this information may be irrelevant. However, do not be fooled by this class circus. You do get a hefty handful of these class sigil horns, which are required to upgrade your class circus past level 5. Although this information isn't made apparent to you at first, it's going to take 2 horns to break past level 10, 3 horns to break past level 15, and probably even more to break past 20, so the last thing you want to be doing is wasting your horns on classes you don't really use. At first it may seem like you're stocking up on a lot of power crystals, but don't worry, they will be used. Next mistake is kinda small, but if you don't notice it can add up. This first refill on boosting flowing rewards is only 50 gems, but the more you do it, the more expensive it costs. So if you thought it was 50 every time, you're probably wasting more gems than you thought. Same thing goes with these Lost Valley tickets. It starts at 50, but then starts to exponentially increase, so be careful that you don't waste all your gems here. Eventually you'll unlock all the diamond gifts by beating floor 15, and if you want copies of all these SSSs, you will need 15,000 gems. Keep at least 50k stocked up for whenever you start nearing the end of the dungeons. This may sound unfathomable, but they give you a ton of gems. They're everywhere, so it's actually not that hard to do. Next mistake is going to be annually forgetting to upgrade your defenses. You can see right here I've committed the cardinal sin again. My entire team is completely jank. Really, about once a week or so, you should have gained enough power to go ahead and reset all 3 teams. It only takes a minute, and it's going to ensure that you get the most out of all the work you're putting into the game. Another big problem that can be hard to keep track of is clearing out your friends list of inactives. I got about 10 friends here that have been inactive for over a week, which means that I've lost over 100 hearts. It can be hard to notice with how many banners there are because regardless, you'll be doing like 100 summons every single day. But it's actually a decent rate to get an S rank from here. Who knows, maybe even some of my dragons could be maxed out by now if I kept up with it. Speaking of keeping up with things, this traveling portal can be hard to keep track of, so make sure it's next to something you use regularly. There's been several days I forgot to collect, several days I forgot to dispatch, so it adds up. Here in the Wormrealm Clash, there's actually a little bit of a pro tip I can share. Most people forget that you do have to fight these bosses 15 times each in order to get all of your tokens. Of course, if you got kind of a decked out team, this can be very tedious and time consuming. The best way I found to go about it is for one round, give it your all and try and get a high score, and then every single match after that, just unequip everything, throw down a level 1 dragon, and the matches go by much faster. You're not likely to beat your high score by too much by spamming your main team, but you will save about 30 minutes of time by using this method. When the Ancient Crusade, unlocking a new difficulty can be kind of intimidating. No one likes to go in and just get completely wrecked. But it is worth it because if you look at the challenge rewards, the damage required for the level 1 prize is 0. This means as long as you participate, you're getting that egg and those gems. A mistake I made in the Ancient Domain is if you haven't completed a floor yet, don't try and move on to a different one. Sometimes these can be frustrating and they do take a lot of time to complete, but none of them ever need to be reset and they're all completable on your first try. So don't go wasting your time by dropping from 95% all the way down to 0 just because you couldn't get the final puzzle. And next is keeping proper track of your Grand Adventure tickets. Unlike a lot of the other PvE in the game, these tickets recharge over time, kinda like energy. So if you're thinking about going to bed with 4 out of 8 tickets, you might want to go ahead and sweep something so you don't lose those shards. The next big mistake I made is not actually doing your reset every day on Nightfall Forest, because once you do get past the first of the few chapters, it starts to slow down and become a little bit painful to trudge through. But you do not want to give up, because the enemies don't recover health, and you will want to get as far as you can, because the leaderboard in this will get you some of the best rewards in the game. Next up is not paying attention to the rules in the Guardian's Respite. Yeah, it can be tempting to just throw your main team at everything, but some of these bosses actually have raid mechanics that are required to progress. Like right here on Ravana, whenever we get him down to 50% health, we have to knock him down or else he's just going to one-shot our entire team. No matter how much money you've spent or power you have, you'll never get past floor level 1 if you don't pay attention to the mechanics. And if you're lost, there's a little tips button that gives you a detail on the boss's profile, so that way you can get a head start on him. Finally, whenever we're looking at the general shop, this purchase in the top left for gold is always going to be worth it. You need a crazy amount of dragon blood crystals to advance in the endgame. Finally, and hopefully most obviously, the only place you should be getting these rare dragon shards is from the Dragon Spirit shop. They are available in some of the other shops, but they are never worth it to get. And in that glory shop, make sure you get ethereal summoning stones, because that's how you summon the SP. And that about covers all of my major mistakes that jammed up my account's progression. I'm sure there's probably a couple things I forgot, so if there's something you did that you thought messed up your account, make sure you let everybody know in a comment. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, feel free to join my Discord. But other than that, y'all, that's gonna do it for me today, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.